You're listening to Restaurants Reinvented, a podcast for restaurant brands who want to put growth back on the menu. In each episode, Jen Kern, the CMO of Q, highlights innovators and change agents in the restaurant industry and uncovers how leading brands are modernizing their operations to drive efficiency and meet the evolving demands of guests. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Restaurants Reinvented. This is Jen, and today I'm joined with Sheila Bennett from CORE, the Children of Restaurant Employees, my new favorite pet project, by the way, and I can't wait to hear all about it today. So, Sheila, please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to dive right into learning all about how we can support children of restaurant employees.
Jen, thank you for the warm introduction and also for giving us the opportunity to tell your audience about CORE. We're the best kept secret in the industry. And
Agreed.
yeah, but with your help, we're changing that. Anyway, CORE was founded, or the concept of CORE was developed in 2004 when some friends that worked in the restaurant industry met for cocktails during the restaurant show in Chicago in 2004. And many of them worked in the beverage vertical, meaning they worked for Diageo, Salute Vodka, and a restaurant operator was at the table. And they were talking about so many times people came to them asking for money to support these amazing organizations and causes. But then they were curious to find out, well, is there a cause out there that supports the working employees, the workforce in our industry? And they couldn't think of anything. And they said, well, let's create it. So in the early days, they really weren't certain what to do. They just knew they wanted to help.
Okay.
And they went to their friends and they initially partnered with a great organization called Make-A-Wish for 3 years. But the families they helped, being many times the frontline workers in any kind of food service operation, they would say, gosh, well, this is really nice. What we really need help with is just covering our bills, our rent and mortgage, utilities, and maybe some out-of-pocket medical cost. And so they took 2 years off, did a lot of research around CORE, and that's when they determined and identified, the structure of what has grown and evolved to be CORE today. But I will say, back in 2019, they were searching for an executive director that could take them beyond beverage. Now, keep in mind, they came up with the idea of CORE in 2004 and take it to 2019, where they're going, oh, we need someone to get us beyond the beverage vertical. And that's where I came in. And they were looking for someone, again, that had the connections beyond beverage. And in my long career in the restaurant industry, I started out working part-time at Ruby Tuesdays in Nashville while I was teaching as a teaching assistant at Vanderbilt in child psychiatry.
Wow.
And I got a job there to supplement my income with a goal to go back and get my master's in special ed. Well, all I can say is I fell in love with this industry.
Yeah.
And worked for several years part-time with Ruby Tuesdays, and then went on board with a food service distribution company, which if you've been in the industry for a while, you may remember PYA Monarch. They were the third largest food distributor in the nation, and they only covered 33 states.
Okay.
They were owned by the Sara Lee Corporation, an amazing organization, and I was with them for 12 years. First in national accounts, worked my way up to run the chain account department, cross-trained in other departments in purchasing. And then we were sold to U.S. Food Service, and I was offered an opportunity to go on board with the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation in Chicago, and accepted that opportunity, learned so much more about the industry from a high level view and how everything works together, and worked with the board of the NRA Ed Foundation and the NRA board, the Restaurant Association board, and was in Chicago for almost 3 years. But for the Southern girl, Chicago was pretty cold. And I moved south with Compass Group North America, their food buy division. And then they wanted me to move after I'd bought a home and settled in. And I was like, no, I think I want to stay in Atlanta for a while, and worked with other companies, Basics Restaurant Services, which then evolved to Armada Supply Chain Solutions Group, Share Our Strength, where they first had a program they wanted to take to the industry called the Great American Dine Out. So I was hired to lead that program, and that was in 2008. And day 2 of that program, the market crashed. So we retooled the program to ask operators to create cause marketing programs and engage their guests for a donation and giving them something in return. And then I rebranded it the Dine Out for No Kid Hungry. Basically ran that program for 7 years, put it on the map to the industry, which really works on ending childhood hunger. A great program. And then I went through my own medical crisis in 2015 and went through brain surgery.
Oh gosh. So sorry.
Yeah. And that is actually, it was 7 years ago,
Mm.
May 13th is
Wow.
that kind of, day of when I went through what was to be a 4.5 to 5 hour surgery. It ended up being 8.5 hours.
Oof.
But the good news is I was told I was going to be swollen in my face, like I had a grapefruit attached to the front side of my face, and that I would just be miserable for a month. And I was just curious after seeing a segment on Dr. Oz about anti-inflammatory diets when he and
Mm.
Dr. Andrew Weil were talking about this, and I thought, well, maybe I should try that. And I did, and I did not have that swelling. Shocked the doctors and surgeons at Emory, and I
Mm.
became the first unofficial case study of the positive impact of anti-inflammatory diets,
Wow.
and they could operate longer.
Wow.
So, and have even the best possible outcome. And then when I got through that journey that year, because it took some time to work through it, surgery, physical therapy to be able to get my balance again and stand on one foot, to radiation, six
Mm.
weeks for 5 days a week. And
Mm.
then I went on board with Fishbowl Marketing, which was the very first marketing program for the restaurant industry. And they're now Personicap.
Yeah.
And then they sold. And anyway, then I left them and came on board with Core after the recruiter that had placed me numerous times called and said, there's this little nonprofit that needs your help.
Yeah.
And I came on board January 24th, 2020, right before the pandemic hit.
Whew.
Yeah. And moved back to my hometown of Nashville.
Okay.
And here we are.
Wow. And just like you said, I mean, well, first of all, thanks for the background. It's fascinating. I mean, you've got the restaurant operations industry background. You've got
Mhm.
clearly a strong background in, like you said, you studied child psychology, but then also on the nonprofit and the cause marketing side. And so this is all so beautifully come together. Like you said, putting No Kid Hungry on the map to put Core on the map, which I had never heard of. So I didn't, I mean, I'm surprised it was started in 2012 or no, you said 2004 it was started. And the first time I heard about it was at a conference recently in
Mhm.
Phoenix, Restaurant Leadership Conference. I might have heard about it last year, but when I heard the statistic that 1 in 4 restaurant workers cannot afford a medical bill to pay a medical bill over $400, I was like, I need to learn more about this and I need to get involved. Because what I love about it is, like you said, it supports the restaurant workers and their families.
Mhm.
And I can tell it's near and dear to your heart, having had that medical crisis yourself. I also suffered from a pretty awful autoimmune disease about 10 years ago. And I was reading one of your case studies about a family member who had autoimmune and the mom couldn't get to work because she was trying to take care of the kid. And these things can be very debilitating.
Mhm.
And I often feel like incredibly blessed that I had the resources to go to multiple doctors to figure out what was going on with me and then get
Sure.
treatment, which was very costly. The other stat you told me is that the number one cause of bankruptcy in America is unexpected medical costs.
It is. And I mean, just think about that. That's to any American or
Yeah,
anyone living in the US, not
yeah.
just employees in our industry, but also when you reference the $400 bill, that's not even just a medical crisis, any $400 bill
Oh,
that you
wow.
could get, and that could be debilitating to any family in America.
Right.
So, the challenge is real.
Yeah,
And I know what it's like to go through a medical crisis and then not, have that usual income coming in.
yeah,
And, it's challenging. And then you wonder, what are the consequences? There are sometimes prescriptions that you need to get better, therapies that you need, equipment that you need.
yeah,
Are you able to afford those things? And that's where CORE comes in, because our grant process is established to cover those out of, pocket unusual expenses like therapies. medical equipment, medical supplies, prescription cost. So you can be on your path of getting better. But also, we want to make sure that you can keep a roof over your head and food on the table. So we're that first emergency response that we may pay your rent and mortgage and pay that directly. That takes that stress away from you, which is usually the number one stress. How am I just going to provide for my family? So
Yeah.
that's what CORE does is we will cover rent and mortgage, utilities, out-of-pocket medical costs such as prescriptions, therapies, equipment. We may also cover funds for basic necessities, putting groceries on the table, diapers, formula, other
Mm,
items like that. Or also, we're there when someone faces a natural disaster, you know, hurricanes, fires, floods, tornadoes. And in those situations, if you've lost your income or if you've lost your home and maybe your contents inside, you've just got to go and be able to buy a toothbrush and
right.
toothpaste and soap and a brush and a comb or clothing,
Right.
just some basic items. So we have a gift card that is trackable spend that we provide for those types of expenses as well.
Right. And what percentage of the grantees are dealing with medical issues or have children with medical
Mhm.
issues versus the percent that and I even saw something about like death in the family sort of
Mhm.
support. How many are in that medical category versus the natural disaster category?
Yeah, it varies based on year to year and how many
Okay.
natural disaster applications we receive. But
Hmm.
in 2021, which is where I have 12 months of data, rolling data, 83 to 84% of our grants were due to a medical crisis
Okay.
or diagnosis. It was around 17% were due to a natural disaster. We had
Okay.
several from wildfires. We had flood applications. We had tornadoes and hurricane applications, various things like that that would happen, from all over the country. And also keep in mind core grants to employees with children in all 50 states, DC, and Puerto Rico.
So they have to have children in order to qualify? Okay.
Yep, because the founders, they were concerned about our industry's children and they
Yeah.
wanted to take care of them. So in the very early days, the grants for Make-A-Wish were really for children's diagnoses.
Mhm.
And then when they did research and cut off the organization for 2 years to conduct research, that's when they expanded it to an employee's diagnosis or their spouse or
Mhm.
the child,
Okay.
because they knew children many times were impacted the most and they wanted to make sure that they could thrive and live well.
Right, right. And so do you know the percentage of the 80-ish that are medical, how many of those are to the actual restaurant worker versus the spouse or the child?
I have a robust spreadsheet where I could tell you all that data. It's like there's so much data that we have that we're
Yeah,
capturing.
yeah,
And off the top of my head, I can't tell you that percentage, but
yeah,
many times I was looking actually at that data yesterday.
yeah.
And I'm always amazed at because we are still tracking a COVID diagnosis from grants from last year. Because again, during COVID, there were a large number that were COVID related. There were COVID hospitalizations.
Mm,
There were also COVID deaths, not just the traditional COVID diagnosis, but we had all of the above. But
mm,
it's a pretty solid mix. I think the numbers I looked at yesterday was around 30% were the child's diagnosis.
mhm.
And in some situations, it was the spouse,
Okay.
but a larger percentage to the employee. But
Well, yeah, and I mean, because I can imagine that if the child is sick or the spouse is sick, it makes it hard for the person to get to work, and then they have that additional stress and anxiety of I can barely afford this now or not afford to pay for this now. And I'm in jeopardy of losing income from work or losing my job if I don't show up. Right.
exactly,
Gosh.
exactly. And one of the qualifications is number one, you must be employed in any kind of food service or beverage service operation. And I want to talk about that a little bit because
Okay.
a lot of people do not realize that could be a restaurant, any type of restaurant. It could be quick service, fast casual, casual dining, fine dining, independent operator. It could also be a food truck. It
Okay.
could be a catering venue. If you provide food service and
Yeah.
beverage service, it could be a coffee shop, a bar. It could be a bar in a hotel. It could be a stadium. And entertainment, there's food service and beverage service, coffee shop. It could also be a hospital cafeteria or catering, schools, universities, anybody in food service or beverage service that would be recognized again by the National Restaurant Association would
Great.
qualify. Then number two, you must have a legally dependent child. And number three, you must have a qualifying circumstance, which would be medical illness or diagnosis, injury that would keep you from work, death of the employee, spouse, or child, loss of home or place of work due to a natural disaster. And here's another one that we don't talk about as much. And we don't really talk about the stories because of confidentiality, but also documented domestic abuse.
Mm,
And we do require documentation. So, and especially if we're paying specific bills, it may be, I need your mortgage or rent statement. I need your pay stub to prove that you're currently employed. And then even if you've got your diagnosis that you're going to be out of work for 2 months, what do you intend to go back to work as well? And then, but we do require documentation, and the application process is so easy because an employee can apply online on our website. They can apply using their smartphone. They can also upload the required documentation by taking a photo with their smartphone and uploading it to the system. And then also, what's really important to know, a family or an employee can be referred to CORE. And we have a link on our website for that too. And I'll give an example. I'll give a couple of examples. There was an employee and he passed away. Well, his family didn't know about CORE. So his coworkers went online and referred them and filled out the application and contacted the family and said, this organization, CORE, is going to be contacting you and
wonderful.
they may be able to help you out. Number two, there is an organization, a restaurant group out of North Carolina called Hickory Tavern. And I get calls like this every now and then. But they called me from their corporate office and they said, we need CORE. They said, one of our employees is a single mom and she's a server in one of our restaurants, and her daughter was diagnosed with a brain disorder. It was a form of leukemia and is going to need first going to the doctors to get the full diagnosis, treatment plan, then through treatment, and she's going to miss a lot of work. And we just don't know what to do. So they referred her online, and immediately we were able to cover her living expenses for, I think it was 1 to 2 months.
Mm,
And it took that stress away from her so she could focus on her daughter's healing
yeah.
and recovery.
Well, I mean, I'm getting a little emotional here. I got to tell you, I mean, it's pretty touching. You mentioned domestic abuse. You mentioned these children with life-threatening illnesses, parents having to miss work. I know in our previous conversation, we talked about addiction. I mean, these are all issues that plague us as a society overall, right? And as an industry too. And just to know that there's someone or something there to support you. I mean, you would hope that when anyone goes through a medical crisis or any sort of difficult situation like we're talking about, that they have their friends and family that surround them. Not everyone does. But then to know that there's an organization out there just expressly for restaurant food service workers
Mhm.
to have their back during a really stressful, anxious time
Mhm.
is just lovely. I mean, it's wonderful. And so I guess one of the questions I want to ask you, I mean, I'm curious, how do restaurant workers, like how do we get the word out to the restaurant workers? Because we're talking about millions of people, right? Just in the United States. I think it's what,
It is.
10% of the population works in some form of restaurant food service role. How do we get the word out to them that this exists and that they can refer friends that they find out, are
Yeah.
struggling?
Well, we're a very small organization based in Nashville.
Yeah.
There are 4 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, and 2 part-time consultants. And we're actually in the midst of hiring a full-time marketing communications director. Yay. That
Yay.
will help immensely. But, we've got some tools on our website. You
Okay.
can go to coregives, GIDES.org, O-R-G. And at the bottom of the page is a link that says communication resources. And there you can download items like our core back in the house poster, which I'm holding up a copy right now. If you can see this. Now, you have a couple of options. You can either just download it and print it and take it to restaurants in your neighborhood to help
Ah,
us get the word out.
I love
Or
that.
B, you could click the link and order them from Caligas Printing on this kind of synthetic material, which we recommend because this is going to hold up in a kitchen or in a
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
And also this August, the week of August 1st, we're having our second annual Core National Days of Service. And we invite, this is something, it's boots on the ground. Anybody can get your team members, your friends, your clubs, your associations, and you can go together and hand these out. And we even have a little one pager that introduces CORE to the
Mm,
operators that you're going to meet saying, well, who is CORE? What do you do with this piece of paper?
mm.
And, how can they help your employees? It's a benefit, which is lovely.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then so everybody can do this any time of year, but we're really rallying the industry, that week in particular to please help us get these posters out to operations around the country.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what was the weekend? June?
August
Oh,
1, the week of
August.
August 1
The
during
week
our,
of August 1st. Okay.
yeah.
I'm gonna embody my old pastor. He used to do this. Okay, everyone wake up. Are you still awake? Listeners, are you paying attention? Okay. If you're not looking at the video, which probably most people will be, Sheila is holding up these great little brochures. You can do this. Anyone can do this like right now. You can go to the website, coregives.org. coregives.org. They have fantastic. I've been on your site with all the resources. You can just download and print a brochure right now that you can go hand out at your neighborhood favorite restaurants. Or if you work in a restaurant yourself, print it, put it at the front for your employees to see so that they know that this program is available. So everyone has an action item right now to go print that out. And then on August 1st, the week of August 1st, let's all make an effort to get these distributed and in our local markets.
Yes.
How'd I do?
And, and it gives us an opportunity to visit restaurants in your
Yeah.
community, which also
Yeah.
can drive sales and talk about it on social media. Show what you're
Yes.
doing, post a
Yes.
photo,
Yep.
and tag us, Core Gives,
Okay.
because that's what
Okay.
we do is we give.
Yeah. Yes. You give hope, and that is wonderful. Why core? Why now?
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's
Loaded
why
question, I know.
every day, but I tell you that it really, the pandemic did shine a light on our industry and how this industry gives back to the communities in which they serve. It's the industry of opportunity, and we just recognize the need to appreciate the workforce and to be for them, there for them when they need it the most. And this is definitely, I think, too, um, companies also are looking at creative ways of providing more benefits and value to their employees as well,
Yeah.
and to take care of them in creative and different ways. And this is one of your answers. There's so many different things you can do, but this is just one way to say, well, there's a resource we know about that we want you to know about, that they're there when you need them the most.
And I love how your logo is a heart
Mhm.
with a little fork and spoon in the middle. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you. Well, that
Yeah, it's
demonstrates the industry in which we serve.
we care and we're about people. And I'm so grateful, by the way. I want to give a shout out to Luke Kirshner at Fat Brands because he introduced us. He said, you really need to talk to Sheila at Court. And that's how the word gets out. We talk about these things with each other. We refer each other, to different organizations so that we can get the word out. And this is definitely worth getting the word out about. So, what do you say to the person that's listening right now that's like, oh, it's just another nonprofit? They probably keep 50% of the money. The money doesn't go to the people. Why should I give? What do you say to them?
Well, I say, 75 cents of every dollar that you donate goes directly to a family. We're a direct provider. We're actually putting money in hands. We're paying bills directly. We also have a process that is vetted to make sure that we are transparent. We're also very responsible for the funds that come in. My goal is to be best in class. So I need to raise more money so I can grant more money to maintain best in class at 80/20. My goal is to have 80 cents of every dollar going to a family.
Okay.
Okay. But two, there are also ways that anybody, if everyone in this industry just donated $5 or more to CORE, we could raise the millions of dollars needed to help more families. The average grant, just to kind of put some perspective into place, A grant could range from $500 to $4,000 based on that specific situation. The average grant last year was $2,400. So keeping that in mind, now, if it is a natural disaster, what we do there is a set amount that's awarded for natural disasters, and that is $1,500 in a gift card. B, we add $100 for each child. So if you have 5 children, you might get a $2,000 gift card. Well, if you've lost your income or your job, that $2,000 means a lot to you. But also, what we learned with the tornadoes in Mayfield, Kentucky, a lot of the employees there didn't know about CORE, even though the Kentucky Restaurant Association, as well as many state restaurant associations, will include information about CORE in their newsletter because we're a resource. And we've got content on that communication resource center too, that if any state restaurant associations are listening right now, or you're on the board of a state restaurant association, go there and send them those communications, because we've got one just for everyday awareness about CORE, and 2 around natural disasters. So when the tornadoes hit your state, or a hurricane or floods or fires, that's already crafted that you can customize and send out in emails and newsletters to your members. So the folks in Mayfield, Kentucky found out about us when I emailed their state restaurant association directly in December. The chair of the board happens to own a restaurant in Mayfield, Kentucky, Carr's Steakhouse. And Daniel reached out to me and said, wow, I have 30 employees and my restaurant's a pile of rubble. And some of them also lost their homes. But also some of the families had a medical diagnosis or illness that they were battling through. So they qualified under that criteria, which was more than the natural disaster. So we just required documentation. And we've helped so far 19 families in that community.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is just wonderful. And I really appreciate you making a good shout out because, knowing that the average grant is $2,400, Q is partnering with CORE. This month, particularly, we're doing an event around both the Marketing Executive Group and NRA. Our goal is to raise what I would say is kind of a measly $5,000. I'm hoping to hit 10, but our initial goal is to get to 5. That's only going to support 2 families. Using the average amount.
Sure.
And so I just think, if you really think of $2,400, it's not that much, like for a medical diagnosis of any sort. So again, encourage folks to go to your website, coregives.org. I have also got a page on my website for giving for our campaign as well. And I'll put that link in the podcast show notes for anyone interested. But I'm really hoping we can help you drive. Like you said, you need support. You need to be hiring a marketing person. You need to get the word out. I was just on the phone with someone from DoorDash. I'm like, they should be like blasting this across all their sites. Like, we need to get this word out. How many families have you supported this year so far?
Oh my goodness. This year we've granted roughly $265,000.
Okay.
And yeah, because I just had the metrics up again. We have so many metrics running in my head.
Sorry, I know, and I'm asking too much. I'm asking a lot too.
You're asking a lot of questions. Actually, I had a call the other day. This is my notebook, my Bible. So we've graded out $286,000, just my notes. It's helped 143 families, 276 children, 489 people. And that's just so far to date. Last year, keep in mind, we granted out 700,000. We're already trending ahead of last year.
Okay.
So we're getting the word out, but still we have some weekends like Mother's Day. We did not get one application, but then I have a feeling a lot of people were either busy because it's one of the busiest days in the restaurant industry, or folks were also at home with their families.
Do you have to turn away applications ever?
We've not had to turn away applications, but we have caught fraud at times. So those are disqualified.
Okay.
We turn them away if they do not meet qualifications.
Okay.
And we communicate with them as well. And the process is this: an applicant can apply online or they can be referred. We get the information, we speak with each applicant, we learn more about their case, and we ask for documentation. Then we follow up if we haven't received documentation, and then the cases are sent to a committee. We have a committee meeting each Wednesday. And these cases are presented, discussed, and reviewed. And that's what we determine what they're asking for and what we award. For example,
It sounds
we
like a
like
lot of work for 4 people. You say you only have 4 people on your team?
4.5.
That's a lot. That sounds like a lot of work.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is so worth it. It is a lot of work. That's why we're 75/25 right now. I want to be able to grant out more. During the year of COVID, though, we grew. I mean, it was just amazing. Before that, they had granted out almost $300,000 in 2019.
Mm,
So imagine I've already right now hit almost what they granted out in 2019.
yeah,
And this is only May.
yeah. So you're growing. The word is getting out.
Yes. Last year was 700,000. We know it's going to be right now. We're in trend to probably do 8,
Okay.
but I want it to be more. But again, I need more funding coming in. So with that, there are ways that anyone can support CORE through our corporate partnership program. And we can brainstorm with you on cause marketing ideation and ways to raise money. Also, restaurants. We're going to have a Summer of Hope campaign this summer. We just met on it yesterday, launching the last week of July and going for 1 month, that we're inviting restaurants to do a roundup promotion
Yeah.
or, implement a roundup promotion or add a side of hope, ask your guests for a donation to CORE, $1 or more. And that way it takes a lot of the pressure off of the restaurant to raise money. But we also have some restaurant groups right now that are raising money for CORE. And they do it through beverage promotions because, again, we were founded in the beverage vertical. So a lot of our partners and sponsors like Tito's or Jose Cuervo or Sam Adams, Ronnie Strong Wines, they
Mm,
will partner with restaurant groups to implement a beverage promotion in which donations are coming to CORE. So, for example, Smoky Bones has a year-long promotion with a Tito's vodka strawberry lemonade.
mm.
Race to your closest Smoky Bones. If one is in your community, please order that drink. One, drink responsibly. And
Yes.
then B, they're donating $1 to each beverage sold to CORE.
Wow. That's
Bar
great.
Louie has a blueberry margarita promotion going through July the 5th.
Great.
World of Beer has a promotion going through the end of June with 2 beverages where proceeds are supporting CORE.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So now we need to get Chipotle or someone like that to do a special burrito, a core burrito.
Oh, there you go.
Right?
Anybody. Yes.
Right?
There's so
Yeah.
many restaurant groups that could partner. And I will say that there are many restaurant organizations that have identified, Smoky Bones in particular, they've identified as their charity of choice because A, they wanted to support a cause that supported their employees with children. And they also wanted to select a cause that helped employees across our nation in our industry. And that just warms my heart.
Yeah. How else can people help if folks listening? I mean, you've covered, folks work in restaurants, some partner companies. What are some other tangible things that people can do
Oh my
to help
goodness.
support you?
We've got a list. Number one,
Yay.
if you want to be a volunteer, go
Okay.
onto our website, coregives.org. And on the very top menu bar is a ways to get involved link. Click
Okay.
on that link and go to volunteer, and you can sign up to be an ambassador. And an ambassador is someone who also leverages their voice of CORE to get the word out through social media, through your network. You can help us find partners, engage your company, also be part of our Summer of Hope campaign and our boots on the ground. Also, this is something everybody can do. I'm just going to ask the question, and I think that we would hear a lot of shouts of me, if we were hearing voices, but how many people are shopping on Amazon these days?
Me.
And me.
Every day.
I have to remember to go to Amazon Smile
Okay.
and select CORE Children of Restaurant Employees. Now, keep in mind, it's the logo with the heart and the beverage glass and the fork and the spoon in it. There are several COREs out there, but you want this particular CORE. Choose CORE as the charity of choice, and they make a donation to CORE for everything you buy through Amazon.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And
There
what
we go.
another thing that you can do
Uh-huh.
is a lot of people will conduct Facebook fundraisers any time of year and also on your birthday.
Ooh,
Cool. Birthday fundraisers,
boom.
choose CORE as your charity. And the best practices for that, we've even got instructions on our website of how to support CORE through a Facebook fundraiser.
Can you do it on Instagram?
I don't know if you can do it on Instagram. That's a good
Because
question.
yeah, because they're linked. But okay,
But anyway, on Facebook, and I'll tell you my case study last year, I established a goal to raise $1,000. I was like, I thought that was a big, audacious goal. And so I took information from that communication resource center that is public to everyone. And that's the one for anyone to go and get some information about CORE. And so I took some of those stats, I put it in my content and said, this is who I'd like for you to support, make a donation. And this is why, and this is my goal. I want to raise $1,000. I raised $1,000 in 4 hours. So then I bumped my goal to $1,500.
whoa,
And I raised that $1,500 by the end of the day.
wow,
I,
girl.
I was stunned. People were so generous.
Yeah,
And I mean,
it's
I was
awesome.
getting some really, but I raised more than $1,500.
I'm
So
sure.
lesson learned. I'm going
Yeah,
to set a bigger audacious goal this year.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I hope that happens with my $5,000 goal. I hope I am pleasantly surprised and we exceed it.
You just
Uh,
never know. I mean, how
yeah,
many families collectively can we help?
yeah,
So
yeah. What else do people need to know? Is there anything we haven't covered about core that you'd like to cover and provide background into?
well, I mean, we've got a board that's very passionate, that many have been on board since day one, supporting this organization in a variety of ways. We're also getting awareness out to the supplier community and restaurants around the country. And we just need help to be able to do that. We also, for partners, like you may go and see our resource center and say, oh, there's some good stuff there. But we also have an exclusive corporate partner resource center for those that sign an agreement with us to raise money on our behalf.
Mm,
But also, what's unique about CORE, a minimum commitment is not required.
oh,
Anybody
nice.
can raise money for CORE because we're supporting our industry.
Yeah.
Number two, we do have partnership levels where you will be recognized on our website and get access to the corporate partner exclusive resource center. I only give that to organizations that technically make a commitment to CORE. And
Okay.
it has videos, content, stats, so much more information.
Yeah. I find it hard to believe you don't have a marketing person because you do have a lot of great collateral in there.
Well,
Yeah.
that's because the first year and a half, it was our heart and soul was put into this organization of working 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day, creating and rebuilding the organization.
You did a
And
great
then
job.
friends that just helped out too.
Yeah. I bet.
But thank goodness for them.
I bet. Yeah. So I asked you a question a little bit ago, like why core, why now? And I have my own answer for that, which is, the restaurant industry, and you mentioned this through the pandemic, has never really struggled as much as it has these past couple years. And now, we're coming out and looking at the worst labor shortages. And it's not, I don't, you could call it a war on talent, but it's a thinning workforce and there's labor shortages. And it's been harder than ever to recruit and keep people in this
Yes.
industry. And it's going to continue. It's not I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. And so my answer to that, and I'm just, asking myself and answering the question here, is we need to support, and this will be part of my labor series. I've been doing a labor series recently. We need to support our employees more than ever before and encourage people, give them reasons to stay in the industry,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And this to me is one of them.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And two, I will share with you that back in November, Technomic conducted a state of the workforce study, and I might have that name of the study incorrect, but they wanted to know really what's the state of the workforce. And that was conducted in November. And they incorporated a question, well, do you have legally dependent children? Because we wanted to understand how many employees in this industry have legally dependent children. Now, we believe this number is higher because what is the number one reason why a lot of people are not going back to work? And that's
Yeah.
challenges with childcare. But to let you know, that number as of last November was 55% of the workforce in the food and beverage operations industry is 55%.
That's kind of shocking because when you think like the stat I've heard is that 75% of the workforce is between 16 and 24.
Hmm.
And so if you put that next to the 55% have children,
Hmm. Well, the
it's interesting.
average
Yeah,
age of our grantee last year was 38.
right.
So I believe that age is trending upward
Yeah.
versus younger because too, what our industry was challenged with this past year as well is the fact that a lot of the high school students and college students were not working in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
you were getting that labor workforce historically.
Yeah.
So, and they were not working. So I think that age range has changed.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if that stat is mostly for like QSR or maybe fast casuals
Yeah,
versus you're looking at a much bigger hemisphere of
yeah,
workers
absolutely.
when you pull in full food service,
Hmm.
stadiums, colleges, bars, things like that. That's a
Sure.
different age group. Yeah.
It
So,
is. It is. Because full service, you've got to be a certain age to be able to serve alcohol.
yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Sheila, I appreciate you so much coming on and talking about this amazing organization. You know that I'm here to help however I can and sign me up
Excellent.
at whenever and wherever you want. I'm going to go print those things because I have a couple restaurants. I'm going to go drop them by this weekend that I'm thinking of already. Um, but before we wrap, are there any more shout outs you'd like to do? Any announcements about upcoming events, campaigns, anything we didn't cover?
Oh my goodness. Well, we just ended Inspiring Hope,
Okay.
which is a way for corporate partners to renew and make a $10,000 commitment or more. So we're recognizing those brands that renewed or
Okay.
signed up to be a partner this year by April 15th.
Okay.
So from that, then we're going to have Summer of Hope, which starts out in July as a personal giving campaign. So
Okay.
even companies can encourage their employees to make a donation and match it. And you
There you
get
go.
partnership credit for that. Then B, we will have the Roundup promotion launching the end of July, going for 1 month that we encourage any restaurant to sign up for and help us raise, critical funds that are needed to help our industry as awareness is increasing. And then in Sep November, we will have our Serving Up Hope campaign, which is our gratitude campaign. And there will be more organizations that choose to conduct fundraisers during that season of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we are going to be at various conferences still this year, the Flavor Experience. We're going to be at MAG, the Marketing Executive Group. Several of our partners as well are conducting fundraising activities around the show, where they're having customer appreciation events, which are going to be fundraisers for CORE, but that's what they're going to be sharing out, which Jen, I know you're doing something special for us, so thank you.
Yeah.
And through that, so we've got other events as well. We'll be at the IFMA President's Conference this fall, hoping to inspire the supplier community to also support the work at Core, which directly supports your customers and their employees.
Wonderful.
So
Wow.
we
Sounds
just,
like you're going to be busy, Sheila.
we are, we are.
All good stuff. All really, really good stuff.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. As you said, I mean, I don't know if this show will be out. Hopefully, we'll get this out before the Marketing Executive Group and NRA. But if you're attending, please find Sheila or me so that we can give you lots more information on CORE, and particularly look up Sheila so that you can think about ways that you can engage with this fantastic organization. How can people reach you?
Sheila at SHEILA
Yeah,
at core, CORE, gives, GIVES.org.
there you go. Sheila at coregives.org.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, appreciate you, Sheila. Appreciate everything you're doing for our industry and particularly for those employees with children who are having a hard time. So thank you for being a difference maker and reinventing restaurants for the
All right.
better. Have a
Thank you.
great day.
And thank you, Jen, so very
Yes.
much.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Restaurants Reinvented. This show is brought to you by Q, a restaurant tech company paving a brighter future for operators with the industry's first unified commerce platform. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow Restaurants Reinvented in your favorite podcast app, or visit qbeyond.com/podcast to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.